I'm excited to chat with you. We got a lot of exciting new things, don't we?
So many new things right now. Yeah. Been so busy. So grateful to be so busy.
Yes, absolutely. Booked and busy. I do want to get into all that fun stuff. But before we dive in, could we take it back to the beginning? I'd love to hear about your story and how you got involved in making music.
Yeah. I mean, I have been a musician since I was like 11 or 12. So like when I was a little kid, my fifth grade teacher, I like wouldn't stop playing air guitar all the time because I'm super ADD and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I eventually got a guitar. My parents like they had to go buy me a guitar, so I got one of those little like, $99 little things, and I started playing a lot of punk rock. That's what I was really into when I was a kid, stuff like that. I was a big emo kid, things like that, and yeah, and sort of dove into jamming with friends a lot when I was younger. And sort of a really good precursor to production was that we would sort of all switch instruments. Like I was like, mostly a guitar player, stuff like that. But, you know, Joey would get tired of playing the drums and want to switch. So we would all switch and rotate, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so I kind of picked up drums, keyboards, bass, guitar, whatever else was lying around, whether it was like someone's mom's old accordion or like a pan flute or something like that, which is a little bit part of like the inspiration behind the whole homemade spaceship thing. It's kind of like, I'm gonna make music with whatever I got, So like, whatever's lying around. I actually just went home, visited my mom the other day, and I got this thing, so I'm gonna make a trap banger out of this soon. So um yeah, so got that, and sort of grew up playing a lot of metal and punk rock and other stuff like that. Various bands, none of them really went too far or anything like that. And then it was kind of like that age of technology happening where everyone started getting MacBooks, and I just downloaded Ableton, and yeah, and then had that on my computer and was doing a bunch of weird stuff with it. And then went to my best friend Nikki dragged me to Summer Camp Music Festival. And mind you, back then I was just a big like emo kid and stuff like that. She's like, I know you don't want to go hang out with these people, like go hang out and do this music festival. You don't like jam bands, but we're just gonna go party in the woods for 3 days, and you're coming. And then
Yeah.
uh, I saw Pretty Lights, and I was like, oh wow, I can make really cool electronic music. Mind you, this was like 10 years ago probably. So yeah, and then saw Pretty Lights, and was like, cool, I can kind of do that. It'd be really fun. And I always thought before that, being so kind of like, I was a little closed-minded for sure, and I was like, electronic music is either Dead Mouse or Aphex Twin.
Yeah.
There's no in between. And so just like her dragging me out there, and then just like always playing music and being in bands too. Oh my gosh, it's like having four relationships going at once. And like everyone's got some sort of problem, whether it's relationship problems or drinking problems, something.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you're telling me I could do this music thing by myself with a laptop and not have to be in a band and, deal with people being late or whatever, or not showing up or quitting and causing drama and stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I kind of got into this whole realm of where I am right now. So
Awesome. What a great story. And it's actually funny that you mentioned Pretty Lights because I've spoken to a few DJs and producers who have also said Pretty Lights kind of flickered something off, a light bulb for them to realize that they could do that themselves. So that's really cool. Shout out to Pretty Lights for continuing to inspire day by day. That's
yeah.
awesome. You
Yeah.
kind of talked a little bit about how you came up with your name, Homemade Spaceship, but can you dive into that a bit more because I love the name?
Yeah. So I mean, like the whole concept of my music and something about it is that it really like kind of I really love the part of my life when I was sort of like a kid and had this childlike imagination, where this little corner of a room could become a whole world. And, your Legos are no longer Legos, and they're characters in a story and stuff like that. So like I was always very imaginative as a kid, possibly too much, is what some of my teachers said. But yeah, and like I would always just be doing stuff, and a big precursor was it to like I was very obsessed with space as a kid. I'll never forget when a librarian once told me, I was like checking out a space book, and she's like, "Space goes on forever," and like my mind cracked, and I was like, "Forever? Like you mean like infinite? Like what's this word mean?" And I was just like, "Whoa," right? A lot of stuff like that. Always been a big spacey kind of person. Also generally spacey as well. If you ask any of my family or friends too, it's
I
like.
feel that.
But I
Yeah,
just say to
same.
you, and I'm just like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. Thinking about something weird. Yeah, and so um, I always kind of like had that affinity for that kind of stuff. I'll never forget one time I was walking down the street and I saw a homeless guy and his sign said "homeless spaceman." And I gave him like I was like I had like a joint. I like gave him a joint like $10 and was like, dude, that's so cool. Like sat and kind of talked to the guy and he's like, you can have the sign. And I think it's somewhere up here. I still have it. Yeah, it's I think it's under all this stuff, but yeah, I still have the sign, and I always thought that was really cool. And I had that sign hanging in my studio for a while, and then I had a friend who I was in like was working at studios and like recording school and stuff like that. I made a friend who had a bunch of gear and was in the process of like building his own studio, but he was living at his mom's house and he like didn't want his mom to know that he was spending all this money on music gear. So he kept it at my place. And at one point when I was like 19 and living in Chicago, I just had this like stacks of gear and it really just looked like a spaceship with all the little, the little button controllers and stuff like that that DJs use and producers use. So everything's all lit up and we're like, dude, it's like a little spaceship. And we looked over at the sign and it's like our little homemade spaceship. And we used to call it our Beat Lab for a while. And then we started calling it the spaceship. And then it's like our homemade spaceship, and it was like I always imagined like one of those live, laugh, love type signs, like our little homemade spaceship.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and then I just really like resonated with that because I really feel like music is my homemade spaceship, and my homemade spaceship is this thing that I built with my stuff that I use to escape and go on these journeys and voyages. And, that's always been a big thing with music for me. I've always been a big fan of this sort of more adventurous, like Explosions in the Sky, like A Tool was a favorite band of mine. A lot of like, more like emo, post-hardcore, progressive music and stuff like that was always something I was more into. And so going on a journey with music made sense. And I always thought it was cool because I feel like everyone kind of has a homemade spaceship, whether it's writing or, crocheting or fishing or working out or running or whatever you do, in your daily life, drawing, graphic design, whatever you do that really makes you feel like you're escaping and going to your own place where rent isn't due and you don't have to email people and, all these stresses of, your credit card debt doesn't exist, like for a second. Yeah. And like when you're in that flow state, that zone. So I feel like everyone kind of has a homemade spaceship and it's really cool. And like, I don't know, it's cool to like kind of put a word to that. So everyone could be like, oh yeah, I do have an escape from stress and like mine's music. So that's why I felt like a really appropriate name for my music project because it's my little, when I'm making music in my room and stuff like that, nothing matters. Um, yeah, I got a reminder on my phone for this interview, which was dope because I just got back from a trip and stuff like that. And I almost spaced, but like I was like just making music down here, and you heard it playing when you logged in. So I was like, because I was like, oh shit, and I should set up this light.
You were
But
in the spaceship in the
I was
moment.
literally in the spaceship. I had
Yeah.
to kind of pull the e-brake and land real quick. Yeah, to come meet up with you. Yeah, which I'm glad. Yeah, that I did.
I'm
Uh,
glad that you did too. I'm glad it could land for me.
yeah, anytime. But yeah, it's like kind of like this escape thing, mine's music, and like if you don't have one, hop on mine kind of thing. But I thought it sounded cool, and it kind of had a cool story to it, and like yeah, always grateful for that one dude I met.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and it's been a cool journey. But yeah, that's kind of where the name comes from and what it means. Yeah.
That's super, super dope. Especially, I love anything that lets me reconnect with my inner childhood and just the way you describe that type of imagination. There's no reason we can't still have that today in our own little homemade spaceship.
Exactly. You just
For
can't let it
sure.
drift away, you know.
That's it.
All
That's
that.
it.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
love that you mentioned as well that you were an emo kid back in the day because I do kind of feel like that's reflected in your newer music as well. So, for someone who has maybe never heard your music before, how would you describe your sound to them?
Well, I'd like to think that I kind of like, write bass music songs. They're not necessarily beats or anything like that a lot of the time. I try to write more of like a song. I don't know. I guess it's just a lot of instrumentation, and a lot of inspiration coming from yeah, like old emo music put into more of like a future-based electronic thing. I do a lot of like Wu-Tang, and was a big inspiration, Bone Thugs when I was younger and stuff like that. So I really like to like keep around that hip hop kind of style a little bit too. Um, Sometimes I like to think, I'm like if like Skrillex and Pretty Lights had a baby or something like that, 'cause those are two big inspirations. If I was to relate it to anyone else's music. And I've always just wanted to write cool, like musical hip hop beats, like much more like, yeah, like DJ Shadow, if anyone's familiar, or something like that is also a big inspiration where, yeah. But how to describe my music? It's so hard to do that sometimes. I do feel like I have two sides. So I have this sort of fun hip hop, lots of like, cool flute riffs and, bangers and stuff like that, fun, upbeat bangers. And those are kind of like we're sort of partying with aliens type vibe, as I like to think about it. And then I have this sort of other side, where it's more of sort of like lost in space with someone you love, which is like a cool narrative that like I've always been super inspired by. Just imagining being like out of gas in a spaceship with like someone you love, and you're just like, we got nowhere else to go, I'm happy here. And it's kind of like a prettier side of things. Yeah, so a lot of really fun, heavy, funky, soulful. I think soulful is a good word. Soulful bass music is what I try to center around,
Yeah.
I think. And yeah. Um, yeah, those two sides of fun, hip hop, funky bangers, crunk, I think is a good word. And then a little bit more pretty, a little bit more storytelling. Um, I've uh, I've said before, like I don't like to make music for the clubs. I like to make music for like sort of just like looking out under the stars and stuff like that, kind of. Which was funny. I remember I said that one time about my album when it came out, and then my buddy sent me a Snapchat, and he was like, "Here's me playing your shit in the club, though." So, all right, whatever, cool.
Joke's on you.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a really hard question. That seems like a really obvious question. But if you were to relate my music to any artist, I would definitely say Pretty Lights, Grizz, Peekaboo, Skrillex, stuff like that. If you're fans of that stuff, I definitely think that you'll dig what I'm kind of doing. Definitely very inspired by all those people and stuff like that. A little bit of Flying Lotus in there is definitely one of my favorites too. I like to get a little abstract and weird, and things stop making sort of sense musically, Western musically wise sometimes and stuff. But yeah, I guess that's what I'd say. Also, the live instruments too, is fun, especially in live, because I've been playing guitar and flute on stage, and really fun for me to just kind of open stuff up that way and make it a little bit more of a live band, a one-man live band experience rather than just a DJ set. Because I'll always say that I'm a terrible DJ. Uh, yeah, I'm just not good at putting music together like that. So yeah, but yeah, I guess that's how I would describe my music. Yeah.
Cool. Well, luckily for the good people, they have a lot of new music from you to enjoy. Last month, you released your debut album, Ghost Ride the Spaceship. How does it feel to have this out in the world finally?
Oh, it's awesome, and the responses have been like so heartwarming, and I'm so grateful. A lot of people, I was really like hesitant to put some more experimental music on there, and a lot of people hit me up going like, this one's my favorite. Like a lot of people really like the last song, which is like 11 minutes long, and is this really weird boom bap, spacey, very like Pink Floyd inspired type of like 11-minute weird odyssey thing. And so many people are like, this is some of the coolest stuff, and I was like, I was told not to put that on there by people, and I was worried about it, but like I am so glad that I did it, because it really makes me feel like, stepping outside of what the sort of standards or dress code is, or just a little bit, not trying to be that weird person necessarily. No, and I respect those people too, because they're the ones pushing new grounds, but like I still want to make it kind of more like digestible and open. I want to be able, a lot of people to be able to enjoy it, too. But yeah, it's great having the album. It's so much fun writing it with the concept. That's what really fueled it. It was sort of the story of a guy who, a person who leaves space and with the intention to just get out of Earth and leave Earth, but then ends up getting lost in space and like can't come back home now. Ends up going through a wormhole, which is like the interlude, and kind of goes to a place where he can't come home from anymore, but his intention was to leave. So every song kind of has a bit of a story, and I want to be like going over that over the next weeks on my Instagram and TikTok and stuff. But so much fun. A lot of people too were like, oh man, people don't have time for an album. People only have such short attention spans. They're only going to listen to the first two songs. And I think I really proved all those people wrong, because so many people are like, dude, I have to listen to this from start to end. Somebody related it to Dark Side of the Moon on my Instagram, and I was like, whoa, calm down. No. But thank you. And that's kind of what I'm going for. One of my favorite albums to listen to is Animals by Pink Floyd. It's just like seamless through and through. And that was a huge inspiration. But yeah, I found people really like mixes, and people enjoy listening to mixes. So what did we have before mixes? We had good albums, right? So that was kind of my intention with that, was to give people sort of a mix. And it's really fun for me to like I said, like my style, like I have a hard time describing my style, because I feel like I do a lot of different stuff, rather than kind of just do like one really cool thing or something like that. But like I felt really good about giving people sort of like this sort of spread of, this is what I'm going for, this is who I am as an artist, and this is what you can look to get out of my music and stuff like that. So I love doing an album. I'm going to try to do an album every year, and I'm going to try to like continue the story somehow, and stuff like that. And so yeah, I plan on doing some more EPs in between and other things like that. But yeah, love doing the album. It was definitely worth it, definitely the right move, and I'm super grateful that people are really enjoying it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned too that that was your intention, because when I listened to it, I picked up on how cohesive it was, and I thought that was super dope about it. My favorite track, I think, if I have to pick one, is Gassed Up, which was also the third single that you released from it. So could you talk a little bit about what inspired that track in particular?
So Gassed Up was intended to be the heaviest song on the track. It was my intention just to write, it's actually 68 BPM, but like a 70 BPM, like dubstep banger, just like super heavy, and push that part of the spectrum. And the story behind it, essentially behind the inspiration for that track, was so Kick Dust starts off, that's him leaving Earth. It's like, we must go to the moon. It's the JFK speech, and like those big jumping sounds and stuff like that. And then Astro Jones is where like the traveler meets this alien friend. And this alien friend is just like, I always wanted to imagine meeting a really cool alien. Everyone's kind of scared. We get this Independence Day, alien versus predator type, like all them aliens are mean, but I'm all like, there's got to be some cool ones up there, like me and you, that are like, we just like to party and like have fun and hang out with our friends, like, so that's what Astro Jones is. And then Astro Jones is also like a little debaucherous, right? It's kind of like that bad influence friend. So they start ghost riding the spaceship, driving the spaceship all crazy. And then the inspiration for Gassed Up was to sort of be like, this is them losing control And then because Space Blaster is them like losing control into an asteroid field essentially, and then falling into the wormhole, which is the interlude, and getting lost. But like Gassed Up is them being reckless and the recklessness side of going wrong. So like the second drop, it sounds like an alarm's going off right as it kicks off, which was like sort of something that I thought, like, I was playing around with sounds and I didn't mean to intentionally do that, but I was like, I pitched this one 808 sound up like really high, and it sounded and I was like, that sounds like an alarm. That's perfect. Let's go with that. Which is another cool reason why having these sort of boundaries and presets, like preset ideas of what I want, these concepts really help me create, because I have a reason to sort of like say yes to something or have it because it fuels the narrative. And then I'm not just picking out of an infinite choices of creative options. I have like a direction. But yeah, that track is inspired by the concept of, first you were having fun with your friend and getting a little wild, and now it's like, oh shit, we might be getting in trouble. I'm kind of losing control of this, but also still having fun at the same time. So yeah, that's where that was going. It's the peak of the heaviness, and then it goes, you know, Space Blaster, and then the interlude, then it goes off to the prettier music on the other side of the album. So yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for the explanation of that. Love
Yeah.
it. It's a debut as well. Great debut album. And I know you got to celebrate the big day by headlining a show at Denver Cervantes Masterpiece Ballroom. How did that show go?
Oh, the show went awesome, dude. It was packed. We had a bunch of lasers. A friend of mine who was actually the first person, like a long time ago, probably like 6 years ago, to like let me play one of his little mountain parties. He does lasers now, so I brought him out, and he brought a bunch of lasers, a bunch of production, there were so many people there. I was so like grateful and honored. But yeah, Cervantes has always been like a home for me. That's where I first got my start playing real shows, doing the E-Tuesdays DJ battles there for Submission, and then eventually playing a lot of just different shows at Serve. So to be able to headline the ballroom was like an absolute honor and a dream come true. I had really fun. I had a bunch of fun making a really cool headline set. I started it off with like Carl Sagan. I don't know if everyone's familiar with him, but he's like this astronomer dude, and you might recognize his voice. He kind of does this like billions and billions and like of whatever. But he did the first Cosmos a long time ago, the TV show. And so I got an AI voice generator to recreate his voice for the intro. And it was like, hello, patrons of Cervantes. Welcome to your journey on a homemade spaceship. Like, please keep your arms and legs in the vehicle. Yeah. So that was really cool. I worked really like hand in hand with my VJ. He goes by Low Pro. His name's Soren. Shout out Soren. But we worked like kind of really closely to make sure all the visuals really matched up and stuff, and that like things were really cool. So like when I was playing my Tyler the Creator remix, he had the Tyler Creator with the cockroach running on his finger, and he had this whole Thriller, this really like cool, like trippy, you know, the Thriller thing when I played a Thriller remix, and like all these Michael Jacksons were just popping out of everywhere, and it was so
awesome.
cool. So I really tried my best to make like an immersive experience overall with the show. Really, I feel like for the first time, I really just kind of pushed the boundaries and saw like how far I could take it. Really inspired by like Disneyland. I was like there recently, and I'm like, everything is immersive. Everything is a experience, and like this whole journey, and like, you know, all this crazy stuff with the music and the sound and the motion and all that stuff. And I was like, I want to make this like an amusement park ride. I want to make it like an IMAX movie type situation, which was a lot of fun. And I focused so much on the music, but it's really fun to like focus on the show, and making it really cool too. Yep. All the flute, guitar, and yeah, it was a fun time. But,
amazing. Well, speaking of performances, earlier this summer, you were actually in our neck of the woods. You performed at Glowheart Festival in Harmony. So I'm curious what that experience was like here in Maine for you.
Oh, I was hoping you would bring that up because I saw it in Maine, and I love the Northeast. The Maine people especially are so amazing. I love Portland and Maine. I think it's so beautiful. Y'all can go like surfing in the summer and then snowboarding in the winter and
Not at
like,
all.
oh my gosh. I ate at oh, I wish I had my water bottle because I have this High Roller sticker. Have you been to High Roller, the lobster place?
We love high roller. Yes.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, I love it there. Because the last time I was there, I actually dropped my lobster in the ocean on accident because I was eating at this place on the shore. But yeah, good redemption story. But I love Maine. The art life people out there are amazing. They brought me out a while ago for one of their art life shows to do a headline there, and it's sold out and like it's so crazy. Like I walk downstairs into the area and they just have the whole place decked out, and I'm just like, traveling the country and playing music, it's so amazing to see like a really dedicated group of freaking weirdos, and I'm like, like I love you guys. You guys are out here doing it, and like Rach and Drew and all them and Chris, they're so amazing. And yeah, they brought me out for Glow Hard. Glow Hard was an awesome time, man. Yeah, it's such a great festival, such a cool spot. Everything went great. The sound was amazing. And it was such a good time. I actually stayed for like a couple extra days. Actually, it was so fun. I just love the Maine family so much up there. So cool. Yeah. Cancel you, change your flight. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
You insist.
Yeah. So yeah, I love them. It's so cool to see that there's a good scene up there of really amazing, super nice people. And yeah, I did Winter Wake Up before, which is an awesome event they do at a hotel in winter, which was so cool. And yes, so much love for my Maine Northeast family. They are such amazing people. So many good musicians out there too. My girl Sokomoto is crushing it. I teach too. I was giving her some lessons, and she's just crushing it, making bangers. All sorts of people. Rachma, yeah, BB808. They're all throwing down out there, and they're all like crushing it. And it's so cool to be a part of that. Especially it's so beautiful up there, and it's like, yeah, I love it. But yep, love the Maine fam. I'm hoping to probably be back soon sometime up there. So
I love to hear that. I love to hear that you've had such a great Maine experience. We'll have to have you in studio physically next time you come up.
yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Sure. That's so cool. Well, I knew even before I knew how much you liked Maine that we would get along because of your love for outer space that I also share. So I'm curious if you were responsible to teach aliens about music and you can only show them 3 songs, yours or otherwise, what 3 songs would you share with the aliens?
That's a really good question. Holy shoot. Oh God, what would I show the aliens? All right. Well, first of all, you've got to show them something really soulful, right? I think one of the first songs I would show them is when Kurt Cobain covered In the Pines by Leadbelly. So Leadbelly, if anyone doesn't know, is this old Delta blues musician, apparently sold his soul to the devil. In the Pines, I think is the name of the song, or it's or there's another name for it that I think it goes by, or maybe I'm confusing it by just like the words in there. But In the Pines by their Nirvana cover, because I'm sure Leadbelly ripped it, but the recording quality was so bad, and the way Kurt sang that and how wrong and off it is, but still so beautiful, is one of my like favorite musical performances ever. Gosh, what else would I show them? So there's a soulful song, right? A bluesy song. They need to hear that. Then I think that I would show them, you got to show them something technologically crazy. And I'm just like, what's the craziest, some sort of Skrillex song, or maybe like some Tipper or something like that, or some crazy Aphex Twin. But yeah, gosh, I want to say like an old like Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites like Skrillex song, because that's like really crazy, and I think it was a huge like level up for all of electronic music back then. I don't know, like that Equinox song. Gosh, but see now I'm like, but the aliens, they need to know.
They need
Uh,
to.
yeah, and then um, and Moonlight Sonata. I think that's an amazing song. And the third movement goes hamburgers and like, so it's like cool. Gosh, I gotta redo the Skrillex one, but I'm not gonna sit here and waste all that time. But something crazy, there's this song that I know of that I'm gonna be like, this is the one I should have showed the aliens. But I'm glad we already talked about this. So when I do finally get abducted,
You'll be
they'll
prepared.
I'll be ready. Yeah,
Yes, 100%.
yeah.
It's not if, it's when.
I know, right? Yeah, I saw this funny Erica Badu video the other day. She's like, "I've done everything. I do the little do 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 do, and I've done all the things. I stay alone at night in the stars. Like I don't know why they won't take me. Yeah, I'm
I'm
like,
waiting. What
Erica,
more must I do?
come on, dude. Yeah. Um, yeah. So those are some good choices there. I think I'll go with those.
That
But
is awesome. Well, last but certainly not least, here in the state of Maine, our state motto is the way life should be. So I would like to know, according to you, what is the way life should be?
oh gosh, interesting question again. So I think that the way life should be is that everyone, you know, everyone creates, I think. I think that's something that I think the way life should be. And no matter what you create, if you create a joke, if you create conversation, I think that everyone should create once a day, you know? And I think that is the way life should be because I think if everyone creates, it puts a really cool perspective on life where, you know, you see yourself and you see reflections of other people. You see yourself, reflections of yourself and other people with how they relate to what you've created and stuff like that. And I think that that would be a great catalyst to help make the world a much more peaceful, loving place, you know, because when you create, it really humbles you and stuff like that. And you don't have to make music, you don't have to paint, like there's so many things to create. And I think it's really cool when people find their lane of creation too and creativity because it gives you a lot of self-worth. And it also, you know, when you have the ability to create and you get into the habit of creating, you can always do that rather than let the little voices take over and stuff like that, you know? So the little, you know, self-doubt and all that stuff can kind of get silenced because you're like, shut up, I'm busy right now, you know? So the way life should be, I think everyone should create every day. Um, and I think that the world would be a beautiful place. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that was such a full circle answer you gave too, since we started talking about why your homemade spaceship and returning to that imaginative, you know, mindset and creativity. So that is perfect. I love it. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I know we have a lot more new music to look forward to coming from you and hopefully a visit in Maine again next year.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely have more new music. I just dropped the album. I just dropped a song on Clozy's label, Odyssey. So you can check that out on Musique Volume 3. I have a remix coming out on September 14th from my friend Bass Physics, which I'm super proud of.
Oh,
Um,
physics. I've chatted with him before.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
super
he's
dope.
awesome. And then we're gonna have a remix album coming out of the album. So a bunch of great artists like Carl X Banco, Common Creation, Medicinal, all sorts of great people. Mux Mool and stuff like that are going to be doing remixes, so that's going to be coming out. So yeah, going to keep this whole year, and I already have my next 3 releases already written, so we just got to get them already out there. So loads of new music coming soon. Yes, um, yeah, but
Very
yeah. Thank you for having me. It was an awesome interview. I love those questions so much. So good to connect with more Maine fam too. So the next time I play out there, you got to come out.
yes,
I'll
for
totally
sure.
throw you on, and that'll be awesome. So
Awesome. Well, then
yeah,
until we meet again.
so we meet again. Yes.